Okay, so today we're talking about settlement patterns in the Americas. Now, the Spanish serve as a great example as to the lesson in history that it's not always the first person or first people to do something that's the most important. Uh, you have to give credit where credit is due. The Native Americans came here thousands of years before the Spanish, and they are truly the first settlers of this continent. The Vikings and other European explorers probably made it here before Christopher Columbus. But as far as putting it on the world map and really making it known to the quote unquote civilized world, credit goes to Spain. Now let's figure out why they came. So the motives break down like so: gold, glory, and God. That's what drove them to sail in 1492 across the ocean blue. First man up is Columbus. It wasn't necessarily just gold that he was looking for. It was a trade route to China. And China at the time, kind of like today, has a lot of cool stuff that people like to buy. And if you can open access to trade with China, you're going to make some money. Now, he thought he could make it. Turns out there was a continent in the way. From that point forward, Balboa and other men, after discovering that there is this continent in the way, they're looking for the Northwest Passage. So a lot of the Spanish exploration in the Americas wasn't to see what was here. It was to figure out a way to get still to China. Here's Balboa, Balboa Park. Basically, he walked across the Isthmus of Panama and discovered the Pacific Ocean, and said, just like here, he said, "Yep, China's that way. We got to keep going." Now, during their explorations in the Americas, turns out they discovered a lot of gold, and that was very lucrative for them. So the Spanish galleon trade opened up, and even still today, every so often you'll hear stories of sunken Spanish galleons unveiling untold amounts of wealth of gold coming out of South America and making its way back to Spain. The next purpose for exploration is glory. The conquistadors really wanted to make themselves famous. This is before the days really of movie stars, obviously, or musicians and things like that. So if you wanted to become famous, you need to go conquer somewhere. For instance, look here, Francisco Pizarro. This is a statue of him in his hometown of Spain, Trujillo. Who doesn't want a statue of themselves in their hometown 600 years after they've been alive, you know? So this is really a way for them to secure personal fame and money for themselves as well. But glory goes beyond just conquistadors individually. It's also a factor of geopolitics. And basically, geopolitics breaks down into whoever owns the most territory is the coolest country. So they wanted to make the Spanish Empire a proud empire and conquer lots of places. So many Native American empires fell in their wake, such as the Inca and the Maya. The Pacific Southwest also saw lots of native peoples being conquered by the Spanish. And the last one here is God, in no particular order. There's all the ulterior motives of gold and glory and things like that. But there was also a legitimate religious calling among many people. They saw it as a noble cause to die as a missionary, specifically the Franciscan monks that really, and the Jesuit monks that wanted to go out and settle and really actually die in the field. And that was really seen as the last dedication to God, is to go out into places like San Diego and the California mission chain. And in the 1700s, that was the middle of nowhere. That you couldn't get further away from anyone. So to dedicate your life like that was surely a ticket into heaven. They had a little bit of a paternalistic attitude towards the Native Americans. Let's see if I can fix that really quick. Where is that? There we are. Towards the natives, okay? Which means they were, the Native Americans, they saw them as a little bit too simple-minded, if you will, to really live as as they have been. So it was the missionaries' calling to go and civilize them. Okay, geographic areas control. So when we talk about Spain, this is pretty much where they controlled. Here's their first colony here, St. Augustine, currently in the state of Florida. But all pretty much the Pacific, the southwest of the United States, the Central America, and parts of South America is really where they controlled. It all started here in Cuba, what they called Hispaniola in 1492, and they grew into this massive, expansive empire, and then slowly shrunk down until finally they were kicked out of Cuba in 1898 by the United States in the Spanish-American War. So you have between 1492 and 1898 this ebb and flow, the Spanish tide in the Americas. So lastly, the Spanish legacy, they leave us with a few things that did not exist in the Americas before the Spanish came. Horses, you think about the Mustangs roaming in the Great Plains. Those weren't here until the Spanish brought them, and they became almost like an invasive species. Citrus, oranges didn't exist here. Wheat, cattle were not here until the Texas Longhorns, the Spanish cattle, were brought over. And with those cattle came cowboys, known as vaqueros, and ranches. And obviously, South America and the Spanish language, with the exception of Brazil and Brazilians speaking Portuguese, all of those things are a direct result of the Spanish here in the Americas. Thanks for tuning in.